All right, Tursky. We've done a bunch of interviews on this podcast, but I'm not going to lie. This is by far the one that I've gotten the most excited about.
I'm so jacked up right now.
I am. Look, we're both children of the 90s. We grew up Bulls fans. Last Dance, I was enthralled watching it on television, kind of reliving those days as a kid. We have somebody who actually was there. 3-time NBA champion who's joining us on the podcast. So we've actually got a McDonald's All-American, 3-time NBA champion who also had a 15-year career in the league. He's also a golf nut. This is going to be an awesome interview. Scott Williams, what's going on, man?
Let's go.
What's going on, fellas? I'm so excited. This is like for a basketball ex-player, former player. Like to call myself a legend sometimes, but to be on a golf show is like a dream come true for me because I am a lifetime hack. But I enjoy the game so much. It has given me so many ways to be able to connect with friends and family. And travel around not only the United States, but the world to play some of the most beautiful courses, scenery, spiritual. I just love the game. I wish I was better.
Don't we all?
I don't get a chance to practice as much as I did when I first retired, but I sure enjoy it. And thank you very much for having me on.
Yeah. So I got to show you something before we get going, Scott. I was digging around through my Bulls memorabilia, and I happened upon a photo.
Look at that.
Look at that.
Oh, yeah. I love it. I love it.
There's you banging in the low post with MJ. I see Sam Perkins. I see Sean Kemp. The glove.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah. Those were those Supersonics teams going out to when we had to go out to Seattle, which was one of my favorite places to play. Stops around the league. I get often asked what was my top cities to play basketball, and playing up there in the Pacific Northwest with all the beauty, and then those Sonics fans would just fill that little arena. It was kind of like in a neighborhood, and they were rabid. I mean, it was a tough place to go in and get a win, and that's one thing I think that MJ and the rest of us prided ourselves on, the fact that when we went on the road, everybody was waiting to see us, and especially when we went out west, because we only went once a year. And they seemed like they had that, the PA system cranked to 10. The fans were coming unglued, and we really had to band together, not fracture if things started off slowly, and stay together to try to get the win. It's probably some of my best memories of being with my teammates. Being on the road and really having to come together. Phil Jackson used to say, Big Chief Triangle used to say, we'd have to form a sacred hoop around our team, and we don't let any distractions outside of that sacred hoop bother us. And that's what it was like playing on the road. We really had to stay focused and stay together and stay committed. And generally, more times than not, we came out on the top.
Did you ever get dunked on by Sean Kemp?
Well, one thing I always would tell some of these young guys when they're coming up and they're playing, you play long enough, you're going to get dunked on by somebody, and you hope that those don't come as often as you actually return the favor on the other end. I was never a leaper, but I was sneaky quick off the ground sometimes, and I could catch a few people sleeping. But yeah, Sean Kemp was one of those guys that if he had a head of steam coming, you might want to make a business decision and go ahead and just think about taking the ball out of bounds after he finished doing what he needed to do.
Right. He was vicious too. He would point right in your face after he dunked on you. Oof.
Yeah.
It's funny that you should bring up that photo of Sean Kemp, because just the other day I was walking by the mirror. I was coming out of the shower and I was like, boy, I look like Kemp post-lockout back in 1998. It's like, I got to get out of diet, man. I got to get those athletic greens going, or the liver belly pills or something. I got to start working out. But yeah, you're right. When Kemp was in his heyday, the Rain Man couldn't be stopped.
So, rookies coming into the league, you're trying to kind of find your footing. You come into the league and you get thrust into the middle of this Bulls team that was on the rise. What was it like to be a rookie joining that team?
It was crazy because I wasn't drafted. coming out of North Carolina. I had a bad shoulder injury, and it would kind of dislocate, sublex, and so it scared a lot of teams off. And I had to try out for the Bulls. I went out to summer camp in Los Angeles, Loyola Marymount, survived that round of cuts. Then got to veterans camp. They had one spot left open. There were 7 guys trying out. I survived that round of cuts. And training camp was something that I thought I was prepared for. And I always had a very high work ethic. But Jordan was on a mission. He was like a man possessed. He had never won the championship. He had been beaten by the Pistons and knocked down like I think 3 previous years in the Eastern Conference Finals. And everyone had told him he's a scorer. He's nothing more. He'll never win an NBA championship. And he was like a smoldering beast in training camp. We practiced hard and physical, 3-hour practices twice a day for a solid week. And I'd never been through such intensity before in my entire life. The entire time your skin's crawling, your hair's standing up, people are barking orders. You're trying to learn new terminology, and being a rookie coming into that triangle offense, there's so many variations of things that can happen. It looks like it's just a triangle. You pass to the top and you make a split cut, but you're reading and reacting on the defense. There's like 64 different options. And, I'm going home back to the hotel room, rather, dog tired, trying to concentrate, writing things down, trying to stay sharp so I'd have an edge over the other guys trying out for those positions. So it was just a real hectic time. And lo and behold, we come out of the gate to start the season and we drop our first 3 games of the year. it was like, oh my God. So if things were hard that first week in training camp, they even ratcheted up even more as MJ was just out of his mind, beside himself. We finally caught our groove, and we went on to have a nice year. Obviously, we had 61 wins, won the top seed in the East, had the best record in the league, and that served us well throughout the playoffs against the Pistons. But we ended up sweeping. But that first year as a rookie, I had rookie duty. Scottie Pippen and Horace Grant were on my case all the time to rack the balls and vacuum up the training facility and clean the locker room, and wanted me running donuts and tried to get me to wash the cars. I drew the line at that. I'm like, I'm not washing cars in Chicago in the middle of winter. Y'all keep that, BS. You find some other flunky to do that work. But, getting the ball bags off the airplane when we landed on the road in Cleveland at 1 o'clock in the morning, when your hands are frozen. It was tough, but I stuck it out. I think my teammates understood, that I was the only rookie. And I was trying to do the best that I could and learn the system, fit in and be a part of the squad and be part of something that they were building that was quite special. And thank goodness, maybe good Lord above or MJ looking out for me. One of the two, I was able to stick. And it was a special, special year. And we won the championship against my Los Angeles Lakers. Well, I grew up in Los Angeles being a Laker fan, idolizing guys like Michael Jordan and James Worthy and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Jamal Wilkes and Byron Scott and Norm Nixon. So I was in heaven playing in the Forum against those guys. And, that was the, I cried after that championship. Like I had gone through so much ups and downs and highs and lows over the course of that season that ended in the championship in Los Angeles was just so sweet.
Going to UNC, did you have like that immediate connection with Jordan, or were you kind of just the rookie?
No, it was Carolina family for sure. MJ is a huge Carolina basketball guy. I'm sure you've seen the pictures of him wearing his Carolina shorts up underneath his jersey. All that's true. I had my locker right next to his at Chicago Stadium. I thought, oh my God, this is going to be great. A blessing, right next to Michael Jordan. I hope some of that talent will seep through the walls and rub off onto me, this is going to be great. Well, I found out nobody wanted that locker after the first game because the press would surround him so bad. The locker was so tiny, you couldn't even get to your little stall there to get your underwear on after the games, that people were trying to stick microphones across your face and everything just to get a soundbite for Michael Jordan. But I wouldn't trade it for the world. It was a wonderful experience. But funny story is, after not being drafted, I played in a pickup game in Greensboro, which Jordan put on for a bunch of kids that were kind of underprivileged, that got camped for free. It's kind of what they raised money, called the greatest pickup game in the world. Fred Whitfield, his buddy, owned it, ran it. And I played on Jordan's team, and I think I impressed him just enough that he made a call to Jerry Krause in Chicago and said, hey, give Williams a look-see. So wow. I do know
personal
a lot
call to Jerry Krause.
How I ended up getting to Chicago to Michael Jordan for making that call to Krause right after the game, leaving the arena. But I almost screwed it up because my agent got me an invitation to go down to Charlotte before I ended up going to Chicago. But Charlotte fails me on my physical because of my shoulder. I was like, duh, that's the reason why I wasn't drafted. I grab a ticket that afternoon, fly to Chicago, and they give me an opportunity there. So I almost messed it up, but thankfully it worked out.
What was it like going from Dean Smith to Phil Jackson? Like,
oh, man,
how are their coaching styles different?
I tell you what, I lost my parents when I was in school, so Coach Smith was like my father figure. He was there for me in ways probably above and beyond what he was for all of his players. In fact, I don't know if you heard the story about after he passed, he left everybody a check for $200 to go out and have dinner on him, kind of an appreciation for what we did. Well, he did so much more for all of us than we ever did for him. I still have that. It's one of my most prized memorabilia from playing sports is having the letter and that check in a frame from Coach Smith. I said, I'll never cash that. In fact, I held on to it for so long. The accountant called me and Scott said, Scott, are you going to cash that check or what? We're trying to reconcile the books. I said, no, go ahead, take that one off the book. I'm keeping this check. But anyway, he was wonderful. He cared more about us becoming good men than he did about winning a basketball game. And he was competitive as anybody had ever seen. Watched a lot of film. We understood basketball from a IQ standpoint, not just from a running play standpoint. I mean, our basketball IQ, I think for Carolina guys is higher than most universities when we leave school. He didn't just roll the balls out there with some athletic players that were McDonald's All-American. He teaches you the game in film session and breaks it down. Sometimes a little more than we wanted, but we all learned, having a thought for the day, not just a defensive emphasis and an offensive emphasis, trying to make us more well-rounded people. Like it could be something from, Gandhi or Martin Luther King Jr. or Babe Ruth. It was just all these different sports personalities, political types, social activists. It was all about developing us and our mindset so we could tackle whatever we put our minds to after we left basketball, because it didn't matter if you played in the NBA, if you went on to get your master's degree, or or your time was up and you just got a job as an accountant. He always wanted us thinking about a bigger pictures and thinking more than just ourselves and about our communities that we were going to go thrive in. So that's what I loved about him. When I go to Phil Jackson, being the only rookie, SHIT rolls downhill. So it was a little bit tougher situation because all of a sudden, not treating guys 1 through 15 the same. You got Jordan and the vets up here on this level, and the rookies, the rookies down here over here. And I'm catching a lot of flack. I'm like, dude, I played 4 minutes last night. Why are you yelling at me the next day in practice because something went wrong? Go get on these other cats. But it took me a while to kind of understand where Phil was coming from. And I have to remember, and when I tell people, he wasn't Phil Jackson with the 11 championship rings. He was Phil Jackson searching for his first ring, still only in his second year as a head coach, still trying to figure out what worked and what didn't work. So it was a different time back then. I thought I just kept my head down and continued to work and got more and more playing time. And as I got further in the league and further away from Phil and further away from Chicago, the one thing that I realized what I had so special was he was the master of getting the most out of someone's talents, putting them in positions to get the most out of their talents, while making sure he didn't put you in a position to maximize your weaknesses. So that is just as important as using someone's strengths, as making sure you don't make them feel uncomfortable on the floor where all of a sudden things that they're not good at, it's a liability for them and the team. And that was the greatest thing about Phil Jackson, because I didn't have that in other places. Sometimes they stick you out there, ISO, and you play 3-man basketball over here, and the shot goes up. They want you to go run in from 25 feet to go get the rebound. You're like, that's not my game. They call me Tank. I'm supposed to be down there under the paint to start the play. I'm supposed to be knocking people around. This is not going to do it for me. So my time in Philadelphia didn't work out real well when I got there. But that's the things that you realize that you think you know everything coming to the league because you learn from Dean Smith, but then you start to understand the pro game a little bit better and realize there's not always going to be situations where people treat you the way that you need to be treated to be successful. And that's part of being a pro too, trying to manage yourself through those scenarios. And I was lucky that I had vets like Bill Cartwright, like John Paxson, like Michael Jordan that taught me how to be a pro. There's one thing to play professional basketball. There's another thing to be a professional. And I got a good dose of that early on.
One of the things that got me through the peak of the pandemic, and I feel like probably a lot of people, was The Last Dance. It was for those that haven't seen it, it was a documentary on not just Jordan's time with the Bulls, but just those incredible Bulls teams that he was a part of, and a lot of the major players. They did stuff on Phil, on Scotty, on Dennis. Yeah. It was just really cool to kind of see their personalities and kind of get a little bit of behind the scenes. But I'm curious. I'm sure you've seen The Last Dance. You were in the trenches. You were there. What did you think of it? Was it an accurate depiction of those teams?
Well, I'm glad you brought up The Last Dance because I loved it. And you're right. There was those early days of the pandemic in 2020 when everything was locked down. We had no sports. I mean, Sundays, I look forward all week to Sunday, to be able to sit down and watch The Last Dance. Not just because it was, they flashed back to the first three-peat, which I call the first dance because I think that was tougher, trying to get it done the first time. Sure. Not to say those teams weren't special, but I like the fact that they flashed back to 91 and back to his UNC days and all the subplot stories with Pippen in 94 trying to win a championship while Jordan was shagging fly balls. That was special to me and I'm a little pissed because he didn't interview me. I'm like, I'm a pretty good interview, MJ.
I was about to say,
baby, I love to talk. Put a camera in my face. I'll give you a good sound bite. I didn't make the cut. But anyway, I look forward to it. I planned my meals around, okay, I'm going to get Maggiano's. I'm going to get a little Pinot Noir. I had it all set up. I was ready to go for those 2 hours every Sunday. It was great. Now, what happened with some of those teams with Rodman going off to Vegas and some of the access that the camera crew was able to get behind the scenes on the planes, in the locker rooms, on the road, in 91, 92, 93, that would have been unheard of. So, NBA TV had so much more access the second time around. They got so much more footage than they were able to provide from 91, 92, and 93 championships. It was great to see that stuff. I had heard some things. I still kind of had a place in Chicago and married a Chicago girl. So I was kind of around the city when all that was going on, but you weren't in that inner circle. So I didn't know some of these subplot stories. I knew Pippen was unhappy with his contract, that little things like that. But they brought out so many things. It was good to watch, but it was also tough to watch. To see some of those guys talk about Jordan and how hard he was and that they were afraid of him. I don't quite understand that because MJ was hard to play for if you were just about the NBA lifestyle. Like if you just wanted the money or the cars or the fame or the girls, yeah, you weren't going to make it with him. He didn't play that. But if you were there to work and put in that work and all about winning and being part of a team and building something that was going to be special, you had no problems with MJ. And that was the side of him that I saw. Like I was a rookie, I had a chip on my shoulder, the sign of a cinder block anyway. So I was ready to come in and work. I had to survive in the league. I was on non-guaranteed contracts. I should practice on a Monday. They cut me on a Tuesday. So I was always ready to go, focused, locked in, this kind of thing. So I never had an issue with him. He told me first time I missed him on a cut, he's like, you missed me on that cut. I was like, what are you supposed to do? I'm like, supposed to hit you. I'm like, okay, I'll hit. The star tells you, like, I got to hit him. Like, I'm going to hit Joe Dumars coming through there. So easy, right? That's an easy lesson to learn. That's one of my things. I used to play a lot of one-on-one with MJ after practice. It made me a better player. Playing with that guy made me a better player. And there was a side, like I knew nobody in Chicago. I lost my parents in school. Outside of my teammates, after the practices were done, I'd go back to my little apartment in Wheeling, Illinois, and wait for them to roll the sidewalks up and wait for practice the next day. It was MJ that would be the guy that would call me and say, hey, what are you doing? I'm like, nothing. He'd be like, okay, come on over. Juanita's cooking some spaghetti. We're gonna watch, a game out west on TNT or something. Like,
That's awesome.
yeah, I'm there. You're gonna go over to MJ's house, play some pool, have some spaghetti. Juanita's cooking. Have a couple pops. That was great for me. That made me feel so welcome and part of the club. That was like a bonding thing. I think some of the guys in that last dance maybe missed out on some of those things that MJ tried to do. Come up on the front of the plane and play cards with the guys who were playing, $5 and $10 blackjack when they were playing, for big money in the back, just to try to make sure he was part of everything what was going on. Those are the stories that I remember from those special times with the Bulls, not some of the, well, he was just mean and nasty and punched guys in the nose, if they got into a fight. I didn't see all that. I saw a different dude that was focused to win. And I think that came out in the documentary. But I think some of the other things, like I just mentioned, didn't come out in the documentary, and what he did to try to make sure that guys felt welcome and part of the squad.
I think for sports fans, playing one-on-one with Michael Jordan and playing pool with him is probably like at the very, very top of all our bucket lists. What was that like?
Fortunate. I mean, outside of his brothers, I think that 91-92 season, being a Carolina guy, he would always grab me to play one-on-one with, to come over to his house, and he'd have like Tim Grover over there just doing his weightlifting and shooting pool, and Mad Rashad would be playing cards, and it was surreal. Like, here I am. We're like the Beatles of the NBA. We're like rock stars every time we go someplace, and I'm part of something. At the time, I didn't realize exactly how big it was going to be, when they'd be doing a 10-part documentary later down the road. But I knew it was special. And I was that guy that was soaking it all in. I had the camcorder getting off the airplane after winning the championship, which I lost that tape, unfortunately. But I enjoyed the ride, not only with those Bulls days, but my entire 15-year career.
You played with the 76ers after as well. Were you on the team with AI?
Yeah, I was there when AI came in as a rookie.
You were there when he crossed them up?
I'll never forget the game when we played the Bulls, and MJ was kind of freshly back in the league, and AI put a two-piece and a biscuit move on him that sent shockwaves through the NBA landscape. It was pretty cool. I was just like, whoa, the moxie of this kid. I knew he had something special when he looked the GOAT straight in the eyes and didn't blink.
I got to ask you about one game in particular from your time with the Bulls that sticks out. And I know you saw Jordan have some incredible moments, but what was it like to witness the Shrug game in the 92 NBA Finals? I mean, Jordan goes for 35 in the first half, 6 threes. We all know the famous shrug as he's going back. What was it like to like bear witness to something like that?
It was amazing. You're on the floor and you're trying to concentrate on your job. You're trying to set the screens and get the rebounds and get in position to fight for offensive boards, and he's hitting everything. You're like, wow. You almost, at some point, I think I just went, I'm just kind of like a fan, just watch. I'm on the court, I'm running up and down the floor. I'm banging with Buck Williams and Duckworth and trying to stop Clyde Drexler and everything else. But you're like, this dude is doing something I have never seen before. It's got to be the greatest half of basketball in the NBA Finals to start a series ever. I've watched that game a couple of times since the Last Dance, reliving some of those glory years. And, everyone talks about the 6 for 6 that I hit, the 12 points and, 8 boards that I had in that game, but that's all right.
We're talking about it now.
Career high at the time. I was quite overshadowed by MJ. But I always like to say, the Tar Heels combined for 41 points in that first half. So
I love it.
I got that.
Love that.
Getting my head on. But it was wonderful, just everything that he threw up. And he didn't shoot a lot of threes. Our team didn't shoot a lot of threes back then. I mean, not like today. Hell, they might shoot 25 threes and a half nowadays. I mean, I played a game against Larry Bird and the Celtics my rookie year, and there wasn't a three shot for either team. Not I'm talking about made, I'm talking about shot. So it was a different era of basketball back then.
Mid-range game.
When he launches those 6 threes, knocks in 6 threes and sets that was a record for a game at the time, not just a half. It was a record for a game, 6 threes made in an NBA final game. So it was special. It was surreal. All those, the layup the year before where he takes it up one end and Sam Perkins comes over and then he brings it around the other way. I still remember Scottie Pippen throwing it off the back of Ames and stepping in bounds and dunking it, in the fourth quarter when we were down or up like 2 points. It was just all kinds of magical moments come flooding back to you, and try to find these old games on YouTube. I wish I had some better copies, and the NBA would send us some better copies. Some of them I have to listen to in, Chinese or something, but it's still, you just go back and it just puts you in a time and place. And Chicago Stadium is rocking, and it was, built in the 20s, so the acoustics are horrible, and you can just feel the vibrations of the noise in your body. It's just a bizarre experience, and it's kind of hard to explain that to people like to go to a concert or whatever. Oh, it's so loud in there. But when you're on the floor and everybody's around you and all that energy is directed towards you, it just makes your insides move. It's a weird experience. It's kind of hard to explain to somebody that's never been there, but it's hard to recreate that after you get out of basketball and find that kind of adrenaline pump. I always said the birth of my 2 children was special, but God, I don't know if it was. Although I'm kind of warring with my soon-to-be 20-year-old right now, trying to get him going. Like, come on, but it was a special time for sure.
How serious was that rivalry with Detroit? How was it like going in that building, and what was kind
serious
of
as a heart
vibes
attack?
in your locker room?
Kids say no cap. It was intense as everything. I mean, that was our whole focus in '91. I mean, I remember the team meeting before the first night of practice, and Jerry Krause and Phil Jackson and Michael Jordan all stood up and talked about how important it was to have the best record in the Eastern Conference so they could have home court advantage against the Pistons, knowing they were going to face them in the Eastern Conference final, because they did not think they could beat them in Auburn Hills. The Palace at Auburn Hills had just built this monstrosity of arena, and I could hold 20,000 people or damn near close to it. And they just didn't figure they could win a game 7 if it came down to it in Detroit. And they had to host game 7 against the Pistons. So our entire focus in '91 was beating the bad boys. I mean, that was it. I think we split with them during the regular season. I don't remember how the games went, but when we got to the playoffs, we had really hit in our stride. We'd really had our confidence, and we knew we were the better team at that point. And I think that's what it takes. I tell people, like, I played against my older brother who was a star basketball player. He's 3 years older than me. They wouldn't have my height. And when I started catching up to him on height and skill, I had never beaten him. And even when I was probably a little bit better than him, there was still another year, maybe a year and a half, that he still had the psychological edge over me. And I think that's what the Pistons had the year before over the Bulls. I think the Bulls were a better team, but I think they had the psychological edge. They had a little bit more know-how too, because they had been there before, and that's a big part of it. But psychologically, I think they had the advantages. So when the first time I beat my brother after the game, I said, "You'll never beat me again." It was just getting over that mental block, and I think that's exactly what it was for those Bulls teams. We beat them the first 2 games at home soundly. When we went to Detroit, it was lights out. I mean, the games were closer, but we knew that they weren't the better team and we could handle them, and we ended up sweeping them. In fact, I don't know if you saw in the Last Dance, before the final, I think 11 seconds of the game was even over, instead of like congratulating us and shaking our hands, they walked off the floor, didn't even say, good game, congratulations, nothing, and left us a little stunned and bewildered. But I remember MJ coming back to the locker room and said, there's nothing worse than a MF that can't take a beating like a man. And we all just kind of laughed, and we celebrated like we had won the championship, but we knew we still had some work to do. But I want to say that's one of the reasons why we lost the first game of the finals, because they were so focused on just getting past the Pistons that we weren't ready to start against the Lakers. And the Lakers had just won the championship a couple of years before that. So they had a little know-how, and they surprised us in that first game of the NBA Finals because we were so giddy about what we had done against the Pistons.
So we could talk Bulls and basketball on this episode probably for another couple hours. We'd keep peppering you, but I want to talk about what's behind you, that golf bag. Michael Jordan, Wilson. So you were kind enough to reach out to us on social media, and you sent a photo along of MJ's golf clubs, and you've had these in your possession since your time with the Bulls. I got to know the backstory here. How did this happen?
Yeah, I always like to tell people, I won him off MJ on the golf course, but boy, he's so much better than me that nobody would ever believe that. So I, to tell the truth, one day after practice, MJ grabbed a bunch of us and said, listen, guys, I have so much golf equipment in my garage because the manufacturers in the golf world, I guess, universe, had found out MJ was getting into golf, and he was the biggest pitch man on the planet. So to get anything in his hands for free, to hope that they could get a photo or somebody would see him, using their ball or clubs or irons or whatever, was huge. So they were sending him, and when I say he had a lot of stuff, it was for a young guy like me at the time. It was my second or third year in the league. I was going to get that little fuzzy, but it was like walking into a golf warehouse. There was stuff everywhere, bags, shoes, balls, head covers. It was unbelievable. So he just started handing guys, bags and irons and drivers and fairway woods and all this stuff. And he gave me this bag with his name on it. And I went, ooh, I like that. It has the, I don't know if you can really, if it's showing up good here. You can see where it says Michael Jordan here. And then Wilson's the manufacturer. I don't even know if Wilson still makes.
Oh yeah, they're still in business.
They're still okay. So Wilson made the bag, and then the clubs, which the best part of the whole thing. So they're, if I can put them on, tell me if I'm getting this accurate here.
Oh, yeah.
I tried to put the numbers 20.
Ooh, the
23. Yeah, the 3-iron is worn down. So I think he used the 3-iron more than he hit the 2-iron because the 2-iron
deuce looks brand
so
new.
damn hard to hit. But they have the little Jumpman logo on the bottom of them that are emblazoned in the bottom.
No way.
Jumpman logo with them going through the air there.
And
they have right his name engraved on the what do you remember? This part is a hosel, I guess.
Yeah, the hosel. Yeah,
the hosel there, which is fantastic. And the reason why I never really played with them, I only think I played one round with them, is because the grips are like a jumbo grip with 8 wraps on them, and I have big hands.
You got huge hands.
Even when I played a little high school golf, and I know when you pull it back, you've got to get that club face closed. Well, the grips were too darn big for me to spin them around to get the club face closed in time. So I sliced everything with them. So I was like, okay, if I'm going to get better at golf, I got to get custom fit for my own clubs. So I end up putting these in a wardrobe box with some sweaters or something like that from Chicago. And they sat in there forever in this box because I knew there were some old sweaters in the box, but I had forgotten I had stuck the golf clubs in there too. So they've been sitting in there forever. And when I saw the bag, I said, oh no, because these storage facilities I have are just like, these U-Haul storage facilities, and they're not climate controlled. Some of them over the years haven't been climate controlled. I've lived in Phoenix for 20 years. I'm like, oh my God, the bag's going to be ruined. The clothes are, the grips are going to be dry rot, but they're still in really good shape. So I thought, I'd pull them out one day and put them on social media, and that's where you guys picked up on it and showed them, because like I said, I was never much into getting sports memorabilia from the guys I played with. I wish I had gotten, Larry Bird's jersey or MJ's shoes or Magic Johnson's, whatever, knee braces or something as collector items, because I see on some of these social media sites that they go for
big bucks.
$500,000 for a pair of MJ's game-worn shoes. And I don't know how many times with my locker next to him, I see him take off a pair of shoes and throw them in the trash, at halftime. No. At halftime, because he had a bad shooting habit, he would change his shoes. And instead of just going in there and I'll just put those over here, and hold on to them for 30 years. I think the ball boys probably got more of those than the players did. We didn't think it would be that big a deal. But anyway, this was one of my prized things that MJ had that he gave to me that I will always hold on to.
Those are some of the coolest golf clubs I've ever seen with the Jumpman logo on there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Were you playing golf back in the day?
I think they're pretty cool. I need to clean them up. They still got grass in the grooves. So I got to do a better job taking care of them.
Were you playing golf at that time?
So I started playing golf in high school. After my senior year, we had won the state championship, but California had this funky rule that you had to have so many hours of physical education. So they put me out on in the PE class running around the track. And I'm going, come on, man. I just won the state championship in basketball. I'm in great condition. I don't need to be out here. So the golf coach was a huge basketball fan. So if you played on the golf team, that was part of doing one of your requirements for the state. So I asked him, I said, would you put me on the golf team so I don't have to go out and run around the track with these guys that are, huffing and puffing. I'm, just breezing around. But so he said yes. So they taught me how to, hold my dad's old set of clubs at that time. They taught me how to, hold the club and proper swing and golf etiquette and all that kind of stuff. And I even got to play in a couple of the little 9-hole matches that they have. Of course, my scores were always too high and always got thrown out. Did get counted as part of the team, but going to the golf course beat going to the track. That's all I think I knew. I was like, I kind of like this game. And I played a little in college in the summertime. We had opportunities to go out to the course where the Tar Heel golf team played, and playing in the summertime out there, and the rate was real good. So we go out and play 9 holes or 18 holes in the summer heat. But when I got to Chicago, I didn't really play much golf, so I was laser focused, and plus we would play a winter sport anyway. So I never got a chance to play much until MJ gave me the set of clubs, and I tried to play one time with him. But like I said, he was so much better than I was. I was still trying to remember how to, get my stance right and blah, blah, blah. And those guys would everybody had a cart. They would tee off together, and then that was it. They would putt out and go to the next hole. And I'm still back there chipping onto the green, right? Looking down there going, where did it go? I couldn't keep up with these cats. So I had to say, okay, you guys go ahead. Let me go work on my game. I'll circle back to you. And plus, they play for big money, man. These guys play $10 a yard, and I as a rookie, I was making the minimum. I didn't have that kind of money, so it was a lot of sweaty palms out there on the golf course trying to play with these cats.
So you mentioned you were bitten by the golf bug in '95 when you were playing for the Sixers, and then you were at a charity event. I'm curious, how much golf were you playing at that time before you were bitten by the golf bug, and how much did things change from that point going forward as far as golf is concerned?
Yeah, not much golf at all. When you go from winning a championship to playing for the Sixers and you're the worst team in the league, you're constantly trying to do what you can do to get the team better, because that wasn't what being a pro basketball player was about for me. I didn't like the losing, winning 18 games, 24 games. That's a horrible feeling, horrible. When you know the game is over by halftime, you have no chance to win. So I was really concentrated on basketball, and the Sixers had this event for their Sixers charities. And it was at a really nice course, and I had such a nice time. I just got bit by that golf bug. I love playing. I ended up joining Commonwealth National Golf Club out in Horsham, Pennsylvania, and really started working on my game. Charles Barkley was a member there at one point as well. And that's when Charles had a good swing. He didn't have
that's when Charles had a good swing.
Back-breaking, knee-snapping thing that he's got now. He swung normal. I mean, he wasn't, Tony Finau, but he had a nice swing. And that's where I fell in love. So I started doing a lot of summer vacations. I had more free time in the summer because we never made the playoffs. And I would travel around the world playing great courses. And one of the trips that I had, I started doing this basketball camp in Germany, and the camp director would send me on a 4-day weekend between the 2 sessions of camp to Scotland, Ireland, England, Spain, and I would play all these great courses. So I would go play St. Andrews in Scotland, and then I was there one time for the British Open and bumped into a guy that played basketball in college against this guy named Greg Narrett, who's working for Nike. He's like, well, you got to come back next week because they're having the British Open. and I can get you tickets to go to the British Open. That was when it was at Carnoustie. And so I did that, and I bumped into Stuart Appleby, who I knew through a guy I played with in Philly named Mark Bradkey. They both married sisters. So Stuart said, yeah, come on. He was with the Islesworth group. And so Joe Lewis, who owned Islesworth and Hard Rock, had his yacht parked out there. It's my best experience at a golf tournament. So we would party on Joe Lewis's yacht. It was parked right off the beach at St. Andrews. They had the entire road hole, like this banquet room on the 17th. They're like Tiger Woods, Mark O'Meara, Payne Stewart, Lee Jansen, Appleby, all just kind of hanging out. They had staff waiting on them. They're watching the tournament when they weren't playing. Lewis had his helicopter parked off the backside of the old Horse Hotel, and we'd ride the helicopter from St. Andrews to Carnoustie. So I'd jump on the plane or the helicopter right over with Appleby, and then ride back with Payne Stewart. Then we'd play cards and have some pops and stuff like that. It was wonderful. I was like, we thought we were doing something in the NBA until you get a little taste of what these guys are doing on a PGA tour. Tiger wasn't so much. He was a little bit more in the hunt, so he wasn't hanging out as much. But I would have liked to play some cards with him. But it was a great experience and something that I'll never forget. But when I was playing with those guys cards, they told me about this course called Old Head Golf Links in Kinsale, Ireland. And they kept talking about and raving about it. I'm like, okay, these are PGA dudes going on and on about this course. And I was like all into playing, some of the top courses and special courses. I was like, all right, so the next year I told the camp director, hey, send me to Ireland. I got to go check out this place called Old Head. And I don't know if you guys have had the privilege to go walk the 18 holes, 14 of them along the edge of the Atlantic Ocean. And it's cookie cutter. It's like Pebble Beach on steroids is the best way I can explain it, that all the holes are like on the edge of the ocean, are like vertical. And the drops can be anywhere from like 175 to 450 feet. And I mean, straight down, you walk on these little narrow paths, but you can only about 4 feet wide on either side, and they're grass. It's coming down, it's wet, and you're just looking down over the edge like, oh boy, that's a long way down. I don't think that ice plant's going to stop my 300 pounds from sliding into the water. But it's just surreal and it's so spiritual. And that's the thing I love about golf and golf courses, the natural beauty, the way they have incorporated the courses and the landscape with, it doesn't matter if you're on the cliffs of Ireland or the mountains of North Carolina or the deserts of Arizona, the marshlands in Florida. You get a little bit of taste of everything. I've been on a course with, elk, bighorn sheep, alligators, rattlesnakes, and then you just get a little bears, moose. It's so special, so relaxing, so peaceful. I love it. I love the game. And I think it's one that I get to share now with my friends and my family, and especially my son's getting into the game now too. So get to go out and swing the club with him. It's just a great way for somebody who's competitive, but doesn't take it too seriously, learns how to have a good time on it and enjoy the environment and the people that he's with. And that's what I love about the game. And you can play for forever.
Yeah. Well, so I took a look. You were kind enough to share your golf memberships, and it's like a murderer's row.
There's a lot of courses on there.
You mentioned Commonwealth National. You also mentioned membership at Old Head, but you also have on there Silverleaf in Scottsdale. Yeah. Decent track. We've been out there a couple of times.
Yep.
It's super nice. Whisper Rock, oh yeah, another super exclusive course, and Gaza Ranch, which is in Idaho, with a phenomenal property. So I got to ask you, of all the golf courses you've played, even the ones your members at, which course is your favorite?
Well, they are all special, and the country clubs, especially the membership, I've met some great people. And the club in Idaho was a place I never thought I would ever live in. But I went up there, and it's such a special place. It's such a special membership. A Discovery Land Company that built the course, and the community up there do such a good job. And it's such a family-friendly place. That's wonderful too, because it's also got the lake club aspect. And I never had a boat, drove a boat till I owned a boat. And that's a great thing to do after the golf is done, to get out on the water. So that's pretty special. Being at Whisper Rock, so many PGA professionals up there. It's probably got the lowest handicap for membership of any club in the country. At least it did at one point. But the tips that those guys are give out, they're so nice. Once walked up to a major championship, not knowing who he was, and asked him if he wanted to play a game, and it kind of went, "Oh, wait, hold on a second. I got you confused with somebody else. You go on and have a nice day." You know? But you can do that. You go walk up, and he was gracious to say, "Sure, you know," but you can just walk up on the range and get a game if you were by yourself. But that's a special place that they've created there. Greg Trias is a wonderful guy who built that course alongside Phil Mickelson. So, props to what they do at the Rock. But my favorite is Old Head, because to me, you're walking out on that course. There's no houses around. It's, you're just huffing it. There's no carts. And you walk along those cliffs and you just lose yourself in your thoughts. And the waves crashing on the shore and the wind's blowing. And sometimes, you can play and sleet and it's cold at 50 degrees and coming down sideways and the thunder's going and you're having a great time. And you're drinking Guinness or Murphy's, a plastic cup, and then you got hail splashing and you're drinking and just smiling and getting. And other times you're playing in shorts and a golf shirt. You just don't know what you're going to get in Ireland, and that's part of the beauty of it. But it's something spiritual about walking along those shores that just make me close to people that I've been close to in my life that I can't speak to anymore, that I just hear their voices in my head, and not in a crazy way, but in a good way. And it just makes me just relax and enjoy the moment. And for this, I don't think there's a better walk for 4.5 hours with a golf club in your hand than being on those cliffs at Old Head Golf Links.
So you play a lot of golf, but you're still pretty much involved with the basketball world, correct? What are some of the things you got going on right now in that space?
Yeah, I've always loved the game. I was one of these guys when I first started playing. I thought, okay, after you play 10 years in a league, damn, if you can't go do something else, you're not very talented. But when I got into the league and made so many contacts and learned so much early on, you want to start passing that on to some of the younger players. And I had the opportunity to do that after my 10th year with Amari Stoudemire and Sean Marion and some of the other guys that went on to have nice long 12, 15, 18-year careers. And that's special for me when I look back on now that the things that Paxton and Cartwright and Jordan taught me how to be a pro, I was able to pass on to those guys. And I hope that they did the same along the way. We created something that becomes kind of a legacy. In fact, I went back to Phoenix, and there's things that I put in the bathroom showers, like little positive messages in little frames, these little 5x7 frames that are still there. Like,
that's awesome.
A little dusty, but they're still there. And I think that's pretty cool. Like, okay, I never hung a banner in Phoenix, but I still contributed to something that's still being passed along to the guys coming up behind me. And that's why I played so long. And after I finished playing, I got into broadcasting, and it was a way to stay around the game. I got to call the action for LeBron James, a young LeBron James in just his second year. That was special to me. And then going back to Milwaukee, doing in Milwaukee, and then in Phoenix, where a place that I had played before, and watched some of those guys in those special teams with Steve Nash and again, Maury Stoudemire still playing, and Joe Johnson, special teams and battles that they had against the Lakers with Mike D'Antoni in the 6 seconds or less. And that was fun. And then getting into coaching and going to the D League and coaching in Boise, Idaho, and riding the bus from Tulsa to Austin, for games. And that was tough, but that was fun too. And watching guys get the call up to the NBA, having a chance to do something that I did, trying out and making it and seeing their dreams realized was special. So I've always enjoyed that from that aspect. And that morphed into me getting into college basketball, being a broadcaster at Grand Canyon University, where Dan Marley was the head coach, and Jerry Colangelo, USA Basketball, is part of that program there in the business school and the university, and watching those guys rise up from 2A basketball to having to go through the probationary period to finally get eligible for the NCAA tournament. And then Marley gets replaced by Bryce Drew, and then Bryce Drew in the first year takes the team and wins the tournament and gets to go to the big dance. Seeing the joy in those guys, those seniors that went through all that and experienced that, and now have opportunity to do something that I had a chance to do at North Carolina, playing the big dance. That's it's hard to put into words the special feelings that you get from watching that happen. And I get to live it kind of vicariously through them. And I'm not a big part of it, but I feel I'm a small part of it, and I enjoy it, and I'll continue to do it as long as they have me.
I think we would all say, at least me and Jay Wall would say, the early 90s is probably the best era of basketball in NBA history. How would you compare, like, back then to the current state of the NBA right now? Like, what do you think about the state of basketball?
Well, I agree with you guys. I think as I get old and crusty, all the old crusty guys like to think that their era was the best era of basketball. But in all honesty, I think the game was played with a rhythm and a pace that made it very special. The inside-out aspect of working the ball around, shooting higher percentages, more attention to detail, and trying to get stops. There's something about a score that's 105 to 98 that's more appealing to me than 127 to 122.
Preach.
I don't really, and I guess maybe and I'm a little biased because I was a defensive guy and I could put the ball in the basket that well anyway. But I enjoyed trying to get stops. I think that was something that was so hard to obtain against guys that were so big, so strong, so fast. My proudest moments playing in the NBA Finals wasn't the points I scored or the rebounds that I had or even the championship banners that we hung. It was drawing a charge on Magic Johnson as he came down the lane and blocking a shot. I blocked a shot of Magic Johnson and Charles Barkley and Clyde Drexler, Hall of Famers, drew charges on him, came over, forced him into traveling call. All the little defense, I think, things that I had to try to do in the NBA, stop Hakeem Olajuwon, not try to get killed by Shaquille O'Neal, walking away with all my teeth. He's still all my teeth after playing against Shaq. Not a lot of guys that can say that. You're watching, you talk about getting dunked on. I watched a Shaq dunk on Jared on Dudley here recently. Just the power and strength it takes to try to stop a guy like that. Those are the challenges that I enjoyed that I don't see play out in the NBA as much today. They're happy coming down and taking the first three that they get. I watched a 7-footer on Christmas Day shoot one from about 40 feet with 18 seconds on the shot clock and just shook my head like that's a game I'm unfamiliar with. He missed it too, but there's like no repercussions for that. If we shot threes as a big guys in Chicago, we get fined by Phil Jackson. So it's just totally, unless we made it. If we made it, we didn't get fined. But if we missed it, we would get fined. So it's just a different mindset. I still enjoy LeBron. It's the last guy I've still connected with that I played with that's still doing his thing at a very high level. And Kevin Durant's probably my favorite player. Don't tell LeBron I said that. But I appreciate what the guys can do. I'm not saying they're not talented. I just, to my eye, my basketball's used to something so much different that it's hard for me to appreciate it the way I appreciated 90s basketball.
I've really been trying to resist asking this question. Sorry, Jay, I didn't cut you off. No, I've been trying the best that I can, but you've played with so many great basketball players and against so many greats. If you were to put together like a quick little top 5 list, who would be on your top 5? Your basketball IQ is so high, so I respect.
That is so hard for me because it's very different. Like we just talked about the 90s game versus today's game. And I kind of wonder what the stars that I played with in the 90s, the Patrick Ewings, the Karl Malones, the Charles Barkleys would do in today's game. Would they crush it or would they struggle? Would they have to reinvent their games with the rules that they have now and guys shooting so many threes and basically can travel and change their pivot foots and Euro steps and all these different type of things that they could do versus the way we had it back then? Or could the guys back then, could Steph Curry be as effective the way we beat the hell out of players back in the day? Allen Iverson managed to survive those years, so maybe, but he got the tail end of the 90s, so I'm not 100% sure. We were so much more physical. The game was, you had to be stronger. I don't know too many guys, maybe Kobe Bryant and Durant that were able to kind of make that jump from high school to the pros. But most guys needed 3-4 years of college basketball just to get stronger physically, to be able to handle the rigors of 82 games. And we didn't have load management days. You know, a hard foul nowadays that gets you ejected from a game and called a flagrant 2. And we took hard fouls all the time. It was just part of it. So I don't know, but to answer your question and give you some names, Michael Jordan's at the top of the list for me. I was going to lead the show because I thought for sure you'd ask me who's the GOAT between Michael and LeBron. And I always would say...
We're not going to put you on the spot like that.
I always say Michael's the best. And I love LeBron. It's not to take anything away from him. But Hakeem Olajuwon's the best center, best all-around player that I ever had to try to guard. He was the biggest challenge, even a bigger challenge than Shaquille O'Neal, because we knew where Shaq was going to be. You know, he's going to post that big booty down on the block, and you know, you prayed that you help a ride before he did too much damage to you. But you know, Shaq was a special player. Karl Malone was, you know, bigger, had 30 pounds on me, but probably would outbeat me in a sprint. He was always a tough cover. And that little John Stockton always trying to free him with that cross pick always used to piss me off too. He was like, this guy doesn't need any help. Why are you trying to, you know, rub me off of him? So, you know, I had some star players that I had to battle, like Patrick Ewing, the centers. You know, it's kind of hard for me to start naming all the small forwards and the shooting guards. The guys I had to go against, the big man era of basketball kind of died in the 90s. You know, we have all these kind of two-way players, the stretch fours, the stretch fives. You know, we had big guys, big strong dudes that played down on the blocks. You know, the Charles Oakleys and Rick Mahorns. Hell, it was a hard hat and lunch pail league back then. You know, now it's a Gucci and Bentley league.
Gucci and Bentley league.
So on this podcast, we regularly talk about the importance of getting fit for your golf clubs. And I would say that pretty accurately that you're a unique case. You're 6'10", which is not a common height for most golfers that are out there playing. What's it like trying to find golf clubs, or what has it been like trying to find golf clubs to fit your frame?
Well, everything is custom. Yeah, from clothes to golf clubs, we just get used to it. That's part of it. It's going to be an added expense to try to get you have the proper equipment. And I've been very blessed. I think the NBA has got a very good partnership with Ping, as a matter of fact, the same clubs that these Jordans are. Carson Manufacturing has been wonderful for feeding big guys in their facilities there in Arizona and Phoenix. So you could go to Carson, they'll fit you up, they'll put you through all the things, the upright lies, the 3 inches over standard. Those have been a big help, because you have to have the proper equipment or you're out there hacking. My swing's still a little too steep. I'd like to get it back a little bit lower. I see myself on video and go, why am I got it up so straight? It feels like it's back, but you know, when you're practicing and you're getting tips and you're getting lessons, you kind of figure out how to adjust to try to get that ball going straight. I'll never be able to work the ball, but I can play my fade and I can hit the occasional straight shot up with the driver, because that's 48 inches long, and that's a big help. So
wow.
Yeah. I have to take my trouble, but I have to take it out of the golf bag so it doesn't get damaged. But
I'm sure.
But you know, when you play, the thing that I realized early on when I was playing with clubs that were like an inch and a half over standard, after a round of being bent over in a bad position like that and trying to stay still, it kills your back. So you have to have the proper equipment, or you're not going to perform to, plus you're going to injure yourself. So once I got the 3 inches over standard, I wasn't ashamed to have these clubs sticking up so much higher than everybody else's in my golf bag. I started playing better, started enjoying the game better, and being less injured from it. You know, with a group of guys that go to Cabo on Father's Day for a long time, Ray Allen and Tony Smith, a bunch of other NBA guys, and we'd take some guys down there with us. And you know, we play 36 holes like every other day. And when you don't have the proper equipment, you feel that in your body. But when you get fitted correctly, it's a whole different ball game for you. You enjoy the game better, you're pain-free, and you score better as well. Now, listen, when you're just 6'10", a lot goes wrong when you have that club 14 feet in the air when you try to get it back to the ball. But at least you give yourself a better opportunity.
So you mentioned Ray Allen, and it makes me wonder, of all the former and when you were playing in the league, the guys you played with, who's the best golfer that you've ever played with? From the hoops side.
I'm gonna get in trouble with Michael Jordan on this one. He's gonna want his clubs back. But I'd have to say, Ray's probably at the top.
Ray's a stick.
Yep. He's a stick. And the other guy that I played with in Milwaukee on those teams, and we would play a lot in Milwaukee, was Vinny Del Negro. And Vinny is a member at Wisbrook as well. I played some golf without him right there. He's a lefty. He's sneaky long off the tee, this guy. Pounds at a mile. He's got good hands around the green. He's got a good eye for putting. In fact, I think this year was his first year he broke through and finally won that event out.
He won the Tahoe, the celebrity.
Yeah. Yep. American Century.
And so, Vinny and Ray probably at the top of the list. MJ, I think he likes to say that he's a scratch golfer, but I'm not quite sure if he's quite there. He's probably the most passionate guy about golf. In fact, I think he just built his own course down in Florida that he plays now quite a bit. But nobody smokes more cigars and plays more golf than Michael Jordan. That's for sure. I'll give him that title. But I think Vinny and Ray give him a good run for his money on the course.
You got some merchandise in the background that I'm curious about. You got a jersey and some are those newspaper clippings?
Well, I don't know if you can see my shirt. It says Chapel Hill versus all y'all. I'm like MJ, I'm still a huge, it's Carolina family, man, until we die. We bleed Carolina blue after you play for the Tar Heels. So yep. I was in my storage facility to pull out the clubs for you guys and bring them on air to show you. So I saw this old Carolina jersey, so my old number 42 Carolina jersey. I had to grab that too and get some Tar Heel time because we're excited about Carolina sports this year, especially our football team. We're ranked in the top 10. Mac Brown has brought us back, baby. So we're looking forward to what the Carolina football team is going to do this year. And then Hubert Davis, my former teammate at North Carolina, has taken over the reins for the Hall of Famer Roy Williams, who actually coached both of us in school. I think Hubert missed him, but he coached me in school. He was an assistant for Dean Smith for 2 years, my rookie and freshman sophomore year at North Carolina. So he just hung up his basketball coaching career. And now Hubert Davis has taken over. So I'm excited to see what my former teammate's going to do. He's been killing it on the recruiting trail and in the portal as well, bringing a lot of good players. So I had to represent the Tar Heels. And then this, I don't know if you can make out this behind me, is a commemorative it says in commemoration of your contributions to the three-peat presented by the Chicago Bulls to Scott Williams on November 6, 1993. And it's front pages of the Chicago Tribune after we won the 91, 92, and 93 championships. So, like I said, I didn't hold on to as much of that stuff over the years. A lot of cousins and other people, charities had gotten a lot of that stuff, but that one I thought was really cool. And I have some Wheaties boxes from the 91, 92, and 93 championships as well that are very special to me.
You got to send some of these pictures over. I need to see those Wheaties boxes. That is so cool.
Make me go back into that hot storage facility again.
With the traffic and everything in Austin. Scott, we can't thank you enough for your time. I got one more question for you, at least for me. Do you have any good MJ gambling stories?
Well, one thing I will say is when we would play cards on the plane, the card group was basically myself, John Paxson, Stacey King, Will Perdue, and occasionally B.J. Armstrong would sneak in the game, although B.J.'s tight as 99 is to 100 with a dollar bill. So he didn't play all that much. And like I said, Michael would be in the back of the plane playing with Scottie Pippen, Horace Grant, and I think Cliff Livingston was part of that. I would just say big money group, okay? So every now and again, MJ would come to the front of the plane when we'd be playing, blackjack, either generally Paxson or somebody would be the house. Well, when MJ would come in, he'd say, I'll be the house. no limit, bet whatever makes you uncomfortable. And I always used to laugh at that, like, oh no, you're not tempting me into losing my paycheck. After taxes, I wasn't taking home much as a rookie, so I'd always stick with my little, $5 and $10 blackjack hands, and he'd never get me to play more than that. But that always stuck with me these 30 years later, that I'd say, no, MJ, you just plop down this
smart man.
It'd be nothing but 50s and $100 bills in there. And I'll just be like, wow. For a little guy making 150 grand, I was like, that's about more right there than I see in 3 months.
Oh my gosh. This was phenomenal, Scott. We can't thank you enough for your time.
So much fun.
Well, listen, guys, I'll tell you what, I'm a huge fan of golf, and of all the Zoom calls that I did for the Last Dance and reminiscing with some of my teammates, those were great times, but this is a special treat for me as well. I'm not telling any of my buddies that I'm going to be on with you guys. I'm going to surprise them. So, awesome. For our 30-year anniversary, kind of in the middle of COVID last year, we snuck down to Meadows of Dan, Virginia, and got to play down there at Primland Golf Course, a very special place and spa down there. And we teed it up for 3 days. We didn't have the greatest weather, but we had a blast. And that's a great thing about golf. It can brought us all back together. Some of those guys I hadn't seen in 10 plus years, and that's the great thing about golf. So when you have to let me know when this comes on, so I can send them all a group text and tell them that I'm going to be on with y'all.
We'll send you a link.
Awesome.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you. Have a great day.